Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Deconversion Stories. Today, I'm chatting with my friend Las Lugosi today. By the way, the last name is great, especially if you look in the links below, you'll see a link for his Amazon books that he's got going on there. And one of them has, of course, to do with Dracula, with hence the Lugosi name. And you're right under that pen name, too, which is great.
I do. I don't want to deny it.
Basically, what I do here, Las, is I talk to people about how they found their way out of whatever belief system they were once a part of, and kind of tell us the ups and downs and all that sort of thing, and go far back as you can remember, and sort of once the dominoes started falling, how you sort of found your way out of it. And you were mentioning earlier that you used to have a podcast and stuff that you've kind of taken a hiatus from. So we'll talk a little bit about that too after the story and whatnot. And and I forgot to mention, I always do an after party. So hopefully you can stick around for a little bit after the interview and meet some new faces. And a lot of these folks will go and follow you on Twitter, right, guys? But anyways, so yeah, let's get into it. Kind of take us back to the beginning there.
Yeah, hi Neil. First of all, thank you for having me on your show. I've been listening to your show for a long time, even before I had the podcast. So I've kind of known you from Twitter from before. And part of the reason why we did the podcast in the first place was because folks such as yourself, you inspired us to kind of go out and see if we can do the same magic here in Tampa. And it went okay for a while. And like you said, we'll get into that a little bit. But I think you're doing a phenomenal job, man. And if I could just start out by mentioning, you and I have talked about this on Twitter before. What you're doing and what your dad was doing with blood donations is simply incredible. I think that you're absolutely if I could be a bit of an extremist in that sense, you're definitely a guiding light, a shining light for a lot of folks who need that life-saving blood. So I thank you for that. That's amazing what you're doing and continuing in your dad's footsteps. Of course, his picture is listed at the blood donation center. And I see sometimes you take pictures next to him, or actually every time you get donate blood. So that's incredible. I have several family members who are suffering from cancer for reasons that will become known shortly in just a moment. But so they all need blood donations at some point. And so what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. And let me just say thank you for that.
It's my pleasure. Once my dad passed away, somebody had to pick up the torch, right? So
I think you're doing phenomenal. You're definitely the person that people should emulate when it comes to how to behave as a humanitarian. So just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if anybody in your audience doesn't know that, but I think you're definitely an inspiration to a lot of folks, including myself.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. That's why I do it, man, because lives must be saved. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that need the blood. So I started that Partners for Life group and managed to recruit almost 200 people in the first year, which has never been done in Canadian history by a single person. So I'm pretty proud of that, actually.
Absolutely, as you should be. That's a huge accomplishment. And so I wanted to acknowledge that, because I think that's an important part of being a human being, is to try to help your fellow human beings.
Yeah, I agree.
And that kind of takes me back to where, as you said, the whole thing started. I grew up in Eastern Europe, in Transylvania of all places, hence the name Lugosi. And
nice.
Let me dispel the myth right off the bat. Vampires are few and far in between, and they usually consisted of Communist Party bosses, as opposed to actual vampires. So, Eastern Europe was mainly atheistic in its approach to life. And what that meant was you were not necessarily encouraged to follow the science of things, but you were definitely encouraged not to attend church. That was one of the guiding principles of communism in Eastern Europe. And the reason behind it is because they don't like the competition. One thief doesn't like another thief in the neighborhood to steal from them. And so, if you have a church collecting money from poor people, that leaves less for the government to collect.
Right.
And so it was a competition. So we were not really encouraged to go to church or attend church or services or anything growing up. My parents certainly who were born before the whole communist takeover, especially my mother. She was, and she still is, to a certain degree, I guess, still a believer. Don't try to dispel that in her. If she gets comfort from that, that's part of her, part of her life. But when we left communism and went to Austria as part of our, journey to try to get the hell out of there, the first thing that my mother tried to do is to get me baptized and to get me into a church where I can, have my first communion. That was important to her. And so I went through that whole thing. And as a kid, it's a lot easier to indoctrinate an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old than a grown-up. And so that kind of made me start thinking, well, maybe there's something out there that I don't understand. It's really interesting when you look up at the sky and you see all these, wonderful lights when the sun comes out and when it's setting, and there's got to be something out there, right? Because how could this possibly be a natural phenomenon? It's not possible. And so, lack of knowledge about the physical universe. Yeah. And so it just kind of started rolling from there. And I wasn't so much as a full-blown believer at that point, but I did become an altar boy. I did go to church. I did do all the things that I was supposed to do, and more so because it was expected of me. And so it kind of did plant the seed, though, and I started thinking, well, maybe there's something out there. And when we came to the States, settled in Minnesota, which is not too far from where you're sitting right now.
Not too far.
Yep. And growing up in Minnesota, it's a fairly liberal-minded but extremely religious place, as generally the United States is. We tend to have a lot more religious folks per capita than other countries, especially Western developed countries. First world. I hate to use the term first world because what is that? What does that mean? Does that mean we have more stuff? Do we have better computers?
In my opinion, it means the lands that are considered first world are privileged people.
I think that's a good description. That's a good description. We have more stuff than anybody else. So
yeah, pretty much.
I don't know if you're necessarily more enlightened, which would be really an accomplishment to point to. Hey, we have the best scientists, but we're not there yet. So,
it's up and down.
Yeah. So after we got to Minnesota,
best scientists generally come from elsewhere too. Here.
Right? Yes, they do. As a point of pride, let me point out as a Sei guy who speaks Hungarian that the original person who thought about the concept of using RNA, which is what's being used in the COVID vaccine to impregnate the cells.
Yeah, the mRNA.
The mRNA, right? The mRNA was thought up by a Hungarian scientist in 1980. So, no point of pride there, just a little bit. So after we got to Minnesota, I did go to Catholic school in the States. After we got here, went to college, Catholic college and all that stuff. Didn't necessarily agree with all the stuff, but it is what it is, and you just kind of go through it. But then
your mom and stuff, and you becoming an altar boy, was that Eastern Orthodox? My friend Joseph.
No, it was Roman Catholic.
Roman Catholic. Okay.
Yep, we were in Austria, and Austria is predominantly Roman Catholic. It's kind of like the bastion of Roman Catholicism in Western Europe.
Okay.
Austria, southern Germany, Italy, of course, the seat of the Pope. And as far as I know, we don't have dueling popes right now. We did at some point in history between, France and Italy. We don't have that right now. So Italy is definitely the seat of the papacy, and
yes,
the vast majority of Italians and Austrians are Roman Catholic.
Right.
Which is basically saying that you believe this particular portion of the Bible versus that particular portion of the Bible that an Eastern Orthodox would believe. So there's not a lot of difference between the different sects when it comes to Christianity. Just different enough where you can say, well, they're wrong and we're right.
Right.
So, long story short, I'm sorry, I'm kind of dragging this out a little bit, but went to Catholic school, And what really was the turning point for me when I became extremely religious was I was actually in the workforce. It was one of my first jobs that I've had. I was working overnight, the 11 p.m. to 7 or 8 a.m. shift, I think. And
Graveyards.
what graveyards, absolutely. And what started happening was I figured out that if I sleep about 4 hours during the day, I can still function overnight because there was not a lot of work to do. Basically, I had to babysit a desk. And so, that allowed me to kind of screw around during the daytime and not
Hopefully
actually,
it wasn't misbehaving.
We're not going into that. This is a recorded show. So I'm not claiming anything on the air with you, Neil, but nice try.
Fair enough.
No, so, if I was working overnight, Monday through Friday, I figured out if I sleep about 4 or 5 hours, I'm still good. The problem started happening was that I started seeing images at night, and I didn't realize that it was from lack of sleep. I thought that if I had 4 or 5 cups of coffee, when I got to work, then it would be hunky-dory. And so one night we were allowed to listen to music. That was the one thing about it, is that nobody cared if you listened to music, turn it all the way up because it keeps you awake. And so everybody's fine with that. And every once in a while, I would be the only person in the whole building who was on duty because the other person didn't show up. Mm-hmm. So one night, I'm blasting.
Is that common?
It could happen at that point. Today, I don't know if you can do that or not. I think you have to have 2 people there at all times. But at that point, this was in the early 90s. Things were a little bit different. So I think at this point, you have to have 2 people now for security purposes. But at that point, it didn't matter. And so I'm listening to a song, and it was, I don't remember the name of the band, but it's the guy who's singing in it, Chris Martin, I think his name is. And you may know who this is.
Hold on. It sounds like Tea Party?
No, Chris Martin was the lead singer of the band. I think he married Gwyneth Paltrow. And they had this song about Jerusalem calling or some shit like that. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Some stuff like that. And they had this one song about, the bells are ringing, or I don't remember the song, but I do remember listening to it at night. I'm thinking, holy crap, this is about Jesus.
Oh, Coldplay.
This must be Coldplay. Thank you. Sorry, as I'm getting older, my brain is frying a little bit.
I hear you.
So, part of the reason why I quit smoking about 10 years ago, I couldn't take it anymore.
If I had a brain, it would be shrinking right now.
See, that's that humility that you don't see in a lot of religious people. That's coming out of you right now. But I was listening to Coldplay, and this one song he was singing about, I hear Jerusalem bells ringing, and I thought, wow, this is a sign. I didn't realize I was hallucinating. I was so tired, and I thought, well, this is a sign. I'm supposed to be looking for a reason to follow Jesus. And I thought, well, and then you start imagining in your head, here's a guy, and every iconography that we have in the Western world about Christianity involves one symbol, and that's Jesus on the cross, right? Sure. Everybody has seen it that has ever gone to a church. Most people who wear it as a necklace. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, you just mentioned wears it as a necklace, the cross. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing they didn't use a guillotine on the guy, eh?
Can you imagine walking around with a guillotine?
Or an electric chair. Well, they didn't have electricity 2,000 years ago. But at least not that we know.
But the guillotine would have been kind of funny, though. All the French would be wearing it. It would be all in the, Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want to insult your neighbors in Quebec, but there's who cares? But
anyways, doesn't matter.
Oh, did I?
And I'm a quarter French Canadian, so.
Are you really?
Yeah, it's the quarter of myself that I can't stand. But I'll take the poutine.
See, this is why I had you on my podcast when we had one, because I knew that the zingers would be coming, and they did. And I still have that recording, by the way. So
Awesome.
it
That was a
was
good
one of my
time.
favorite. It was one of my favorite shows that we did, man. It was. I really enjoyed talking to you. But yeah,
I'm glad you reciprocated
my
finally.
guy. Hey, man, I appreciate it. But yeah, so I'm sitting there listening to the song from Coldplay, and I started imagining, Jesus on the cross, and I'm thinking, this guy must really love me because of all the pain that he went through, and I start feeling his pain, like physically start feeling his pain, right? And I'm thinking, either
Wow.
I'm nuts, which I must be, or this is a sign. Somebody's telling me I'm supposed to believe.
Right.
And so instead of going home like I should have and taking a 10-hour nap like I should have,
Right.
I went to a church,
Oh.
right? And I just sat in the pew, in the front pew for about, I'm not kidding you, for about 2 hours, just staring at the cross. And I'm thinking, I got you, man. I got you. We're jiving. We're jiving, man. I got you. I see what you're doing. I
I feel
understand
your
what you're
pain.
telling me. I
Yeah.
feel your pain, man. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And this is gonna be great because I can finally understand what you're trying to tell me. So for about 5 years or so, I keep going like that. I get married in a church. One of my friends who actually I became friends with this guy because he was a Marine, not because he was a deacon. But he was a Marine in a previous life, and then he became a deacon in the Catholic Church. And he and I became really good friends, and we started having breakfast every week, once a week, talking about theology and talking about the higher meaning of life. And
Sure.
after about 2 years of doing that, I was convinced that, I know everything there is to know about the universe. I was convinced. It wasn't like, I think I know. It was like, if you would have told me something that contradicted my views, I would have been like, you know what, you're wrong. And I don't care what you say, because you're wrong, because you're wrong. And that's it. And there's nothing you can tell me that's going to convince me that you're correct and I'm wrong, because I know for a fact that I got the sign. I didn't realize that the sign was stupid, right? But it it should have been a sign that says stupid on, stamped on my forehead, but it wasn't. And so after, ironically, I had to get divorced in order for me to start moving away from it. And after I got divorced, my friendship with this deacon started deteriorating because he's the one who married us. And we only, met once in a while after that. And he could never answer the question I asked him. This is what bugged me. And I didn't realize how much it was bugging me, but it bugged me so much. I kept asking him, where's God at? I'd like to see him physically. Where's he at? Just point to him. Is he up there? Is he here? Where? And he kept saying, well, God is wherever you want him to be. And I'm like, what the hell kind of answer is that? What is it? What is that? What does that mean? I don't understand. Tell me where he is so I can go find him. I want to know more. And he gave me this book called it was Pilgrim Church, the Pilgrim Church. And it was all about how the church had transformed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And since the birth of Christianity, where it came from, and what kind of steps it went through in order to get to where it is right now. Ironically, it did not mention anything about the Council of Nicaea. It didn't mention anything about the possibility that Jesus was not born at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't mention anything about the probability that he never really lived. It was probably just an amalgamation of different characters that we taught about so far in history, until somebody came on. Yeah, he could have been a rabbi that just was a nice guy for his age and just went around and preached the different things that he had heard so far. This book didn't mention anything about how there's a probability that there's close to 30,000 different sects and subsects of Christianity, and they all claim to be correct.
Yeah.
It didn't say any of those things. What it said was that the Catholic Church is right and everybody else is wrong. and that's it. And I've always been kind of fascinated by science because I just want to know how shit works. I want to know what makes something work. And chemistry was my all-time favorite subject when I was in school. It still is.
Hey,
I love
that's
chemistry.
what I do.
Hey, you know what? Chemistry is where it is, man. I piss off physicists so much with this statement, and I make it all the time. Chemistry is the best science because everything else can be explained by chemistry. So they don't like that.
In a manner of speaking, that's pretty true.
Yeah, but they don't like
what
that.
it takes for everything else to be. So.
Exactly. And so, my deconversion started when I read this book. Instead of convincing me that this is the one and only religion, this is the one and only truth in the world, it got me thinking that this doesn't sound right.
Mm-hmm.
This makes no sense to me. Now, I still went to church every week. I still put money in the offering plate. I still prayed. I still did all the things that everybody's supposed to do. Right. Yeah, right. And then, it kind of shocked me one Sunday. My buddy is up there doing the homily, and then in Catholic Church, in this particular Catholic Church, after the first reading and the second reading, and then you sing a song, the priest or deacon usually talk about something that's important that week. And it's a free speech, right? It's just basically something that they write for that week. And the topic that he picked was the sexual abuse of minors by the Catholic priest in the Catholic Church. And it was a packed audience. And this was I didn't live in this part of town. I just went to church there because of him. But this is a pretty well-to-do suburb of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And you could hear a pin drop. And I wouldn't say there were probably about 1,000, 1,500 people there. And you can hear a pin drop. It got so quiet. As soon as he said the word sexual abuse, nobody had ever said that on that stage before.
Wow.
And at that point, I thought, well, this is some kind of shit. This makes no sense. There's a guy on a tree behind him, on a cross, who is all-powerful, all-knowing. He can do anything he wants. Mm-hmm. He chooses not to.
For raping kids, right?
Right.
Can't seem to do that. He can't take on iron chariots either, apparently.
Apparently, either. And people always tell me, and this was something that I used to tell people when I was religious. Either God's morality does not match ours, which means that God is immoral in our eyes because we judge ourselves by our morality. Or he doesn't
I don't
care.
think one exists, so moral
or he doesn't exist.
Irrelevant to me.
But
based on the story, he's an immoral prick, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that because if you look at things that are true in the world, that we know are true, right? Not presuppositions, not things that you read in a book that was written by. So I write books. I make up shit all the time, right? I made up a whole Dracula myth. Well, Bram Stoker did, but I followed in his footsteps. Mm-hmm. I could write about how a 400-year-old vampire is perching himself on top of, the castle in Sigishwara, looking at the world in 1980, trying to conquer the United States. That doesn't make it true, right?
No.
So you could read stuff in a book that was written 1,600 years ago, 1,700 years ago, and re-edited and edited and edited and translated and moved from continent to continent and retranslated and you can read all that stuff. That doesn't make it true. And so I started thinking, well, what are verifiable facts? Verifiable facts are that people are suffering the world over. If there's a God who's benevolent, why doesn't he stop it? And he didn't. I can't work that out, right?
Nope.
So it was a conflict. It's like I don't get it. Why is he not stopping that suffering? Why is there so much AIDS? Why is there so much poverty? Why are there so many wars? Why are so many people getting killed?
Many of them fought in his name too.
Absolutely. without a doubt. And whether you're talking about the Ottomans conquering the Balkans, fighting for Allah, or if you're talking about the Christians trying to conquer, Constantinople, or trying to conquer the Middle East, it doesn't matter. There's no verifiable proof that this entity ever existed, currently exists, or ever will exist. And at that point, I realized that I made this whole thing up in my brain. And what made me realize, what I realized at that point was sitting in that church, listening to my friend talking about the sexual abuse committed by the clergy against boys who are as young as 4 years old, 5 years old. I thought, that pain that I was feeling on behalf of Jesus 4 or 5 years before at night, it's me. I'm trying to reach out to somebody and say, hey, something's fucked up. I don't understand what's going on. But it's my brain telling me that, hey, something's not right. It's not his pain. It's mine. I just internalized it as his. And I think a lot of times what happens is people tend to look at the world through their own lenses, their own eyes, and say, well, I'm feeling this, so it must be something that is coming from a higher being, because I can't possibly understand what I'm feeling.
Right.
And as soon as I felt that in that service, I knew I was wrong. There's no God, there's no Jesus. It was my thoughts that were doing that to me. It was listening to that stupid song, which I hate to this day, by the way. I can't stand Coldplay to this day because of that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan either.
And I made up this whole scenario about, constructed this story, which I love telling stories, by the way, to this day. I mean, I love writing. It's one of my passions. But it's a story that I told myself. And as soon as I thought that, I mean, it was it. Done. 1 second to the next.
You think it just kind of was like that sort of a thing, that sudden realization, and you were like, fuck this, I don't believe anymore?
I think it was more like the sudden realization that I was wrong.
Okay.
And I was irreparably wrong. I couldn't picture a scenario going forward where the things that I was thinking about the universe could be true under any possibility. There's no way. There's no possibility that you can have a God. And I realized this after, listening to Christopher Hitchens a couple of times, but I thought about it. I just couldn't verbalize it because I didn't have the vocabulary for it. But it's impossible to have a deity who knows everything, including the past, present, and future, and still has control of the future and can change his mind. Because if he knows the future, he can't change it. It's a logical improbability, right?
Right. Not only that, if he's all-knowing, like they claim, then he already knew everything that was ever going to happen, including the fall in the garden, right? So he already knew Adam and Eve were going to fall in the garden before he made it. He knew it all, right? He knew that people were going to be slaying other human beings in his name. He knew that the Holocaust was going to happen. He knew that children in Africa were going to be chopped up by maniac political parties and stuff over there, or more like, not really political parties, I can't remember the name of them. But, he knew all of this stuff was going to happen, but he went ahead with everything anyways, which means it's a setup. The whole thing's a setup. He already knew that man was going to sin. He knew well ahead of time. He already knew he was going to have to send Jesus, right?
Absolutely. There's no other conclusion you can come to. There's absolutely no other conclusion you can come to except for that one, because
some theists think so.
Well, it's impossible to acknowledge reality for someone who wants to do mental gymnastics in order to, just like I used to do, to justify what you think is correct, because you can't fathom the probability that you're incorrect about something. And you know what? My personality is still the same to this day. Until you prove me wrong 100%, I'm going to keep thinking that I'm right. That's just because I'm kind of an ass. That's just the way I'm built.
I'm right there with you.
I mean, this is the reason why I think my amazingly beautiful partner should be given the Nobel Peace Prize, because she puts up with me. Okay, I kid you not.
At least a participation pin or something.
At least give her the $1 million, that comes with the
Yeah.
Nobel. But
Oh yeah, wouldn't you like that?
she can spend it on whatever she wants. I will have no input in that whatsoever. No, I honestly believe that she deserves sainthood, for a human sainthood, for putting up with me, because my personality is that until you convince me otherwise, until you show me physical evidence of something, I'm not going to believe you. You could tell me that, the earth is being carried on 4 horses, and until you show me that it's true, I'm going to, say you're full of shit.
You're referring to like extraordinary type claims. Everyday mundane,
Absolutely.
like I took a cab to work. I'm not going to not believe you, But
those are things that I know to be true already.
Right. If you told me I took a cab to work and me and the cabbie were abducted by an alien spaceship, then I might be like, what?
You know what? Actually, I already know about it. You know how I know that happened? My unicorn told me that's parked in the garage. You don't believe me? Go ask him. Right. Yeah. But I'm not going to give you my address. Right. So, but yeah, I mean, it's, I realized that I was wrong at that moment. But then it took several years for me to actually build up the ability to deconvert and to get rid of the doubts that I had and things that I was, accustomed to thinking. Mm-hmm. It takes a while, man.
Can you see that?
Let's see.
It says, which mass rite was your altar boy training? The Latin Tridentine or the Novus Ordo?
I have no idea what that means.
Me neither.
This was in Austria, and this was after Vatican II. So I'm not that old, right? This was definitely after Vatican II. So the language was in local. It was in German and Hungarian at that point. So it wasn't Latin. I have no idea what those words mean. I apologize. I'm not that. Even though I did go to Catholic school, I try to forget it. I read the Bible about 30 different times, not because I really wanted to, but because I had to. And so it's kind of one of those things where, I try to let go of it as much as possible. Just like communism, I try to forget most of it, even though sometimes it comes back and kind of, fucks up your brain a little bit. But yeah, it was more so a training that my mother wanted me to go through. She thought that, well, if you have the fundamentals of theology, then at least when you grow up, you're going to have moral standings in the world. You're going to have morality. That's another thing about it, is like, how's morality? Because before I gave up the whole religion thing, I thought, well, at least I'm a moral being. I'm a nice person because I believe.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with
That's not why you're a moral being. The belief has nothing to do with it.
You don't learn that till after you let go of it, unfortunately, in my case. So, but it's interesting to me when people say, in order for you to be a good person, you have to be religious, because I know at least one person in this world who is absolutely flipping fantastic and unbelievably humble, just beautiful inside and out, and she's religious. So you can't tell me that religion dictates whether you should be nice or naughty, right? But I know a lot of religious people still who are complete assholes.
Oh yeah.
But I think either a person is nice with or without religion, or they're asshole with or without religion.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to be who you're going to be. I mean, religion is not going to determine that. Either you become a nicer person as a result of it, because you internalize the good things about it, and you kind of push back on the bad things, which is still kind of, out there. It's like, hey, how can you ignore the bad things about it? But I can understand how somebody would internalize just the good part about it and say, well, yes, there are bad things that happened in the past, but that's not who I am. And and I believe them. I tend to, if I come across someone like that, and I used to argue with people all the time on the podcast and even after, on Facebook or Twitter or in person, and say, well, you know what, you're a good person. I understand you're a good person. You're internalizing the good things from the Bible, but it's disingenuous because you're not acknowledging the bad things.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't have one without the other. Either you take it all or you take none of it. You can't cherry pick.
Right.
Either your God is, either Jesus is completely 100% pure, or is it 100% full of shit. You can't have, those are your binary options. I'm sorry. I didn't make the rules. I just follow them. Right.
Right.
And those are the rules.
Well, I mean, I think every person out there can be good or bad. So
absolutely.
We all have our good days and we all have our bad days. But I try to be as decent a person, at least myself anyways, as I can, and try and set examples so that other people could try to be as good as person as they can too. I always try to tell people, just be the best version of yourself that you possibly can. It's not going to happen every day.
That's awesome advice. Right.
But just do your best. That's all you can do. And nobody can ask.
That is absolutely right. That you can't become, still see it's still. I was going to say Mother Teresa. You can't become Mother Teresa, right? If you're not nice. But who was Mother Teresa? Let's not go there, right?
She wasn't that nice. So.
No, she wasn't. And when you read the stories about what actually took place at her clinics, right, and how people suffered and were tied to radiators and all that crap, it's like, this is the person that is being brought up as the sainthood, as the model of sainthood. It's like, give me a fucking break,
Yeah.
But nobody's going to turn into a 100% pure person overnight. Everybody's going to have a mixed bag, like you said. Sure. And there's some days when, I try to be ultra nice because I feel, that I should be. And then there's some days when I can't help but to be an asshole. So,
yeah, sure.
I mean,
just ask some of the guys I work with.
No, I was actually thinking about 2016, man. I was like, I cannot believe this shit is happening. It's unbelievable. But then again, a month ago, I was like, hey, okay, I think we're back on course. So it's time to rebuild. So
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, deconverting is an interesting process, and it takes a long time to unlearn it. It's unbelievable how much effort it took on my part, conscious effort, to let go of things that were just kind of ingrained in me since I was about 7, 8 years old. Yep. It's really difficult. It's really difficult, and you really have to make a conscious effort to look up at the sky and say, that's just nitrogen, oxygen, a little bit of a little bit of space,
methane, all kinds of gases.
Methane, yeah. You have 80% nitrogen atmosphere, but there's 15, 20 gases up there, and so when you're looking up, you're not seeing a cloud that looks like God. You're seeing water vapor.
Yep.
And see it for what it is.
Good luck putting a throne on that.
It is a difficult process. At least it was for me. I don't know how it is for other people. For me, it became instant realization, but to let go of it and not try to run back to it when something bad happened. It's like, something bad happened, I must pray about it. It's like, what the hell is that going to do? I'm wasting my time.
Yep.
But it's still ran to that.
Talk to your pet goldfish; it'll get the same results.
That's exactly right. It's like that meme on the internet. It's like, drop a deuce in your hand, then put your hands together, you get the same result, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's difficult, man. Yeah, and then put your hands together, you get the same result.
Yeah.
But it's difficult, man, because when something bad happens, you want to say, well, God must have wait a minute, no, he doesn't. There's not a fucking thing up there,
No.
There's no reason for shit to go bad. It just happens because we live on a planet that tries to kill us, because
don't forget though,
beings.
don't forget that God's no longer up there in the clouds, because once we discovered flight, we realized he wasn't up there. Right? There's that old saying where, God, the gods, or gods in general, used to walk around with us, right? Or they claimed they did, until we realized that they weren't there walking around with us. Well, no, and see, now they live up on top of mountains or in the woods. And then we got into the woods and started mowing down the woods to build things, and they weren't there either. Then we climbed the top of mountains, and look, there's none there either. Well, they're up in the sky. Oh, well, now we're up in the sky. There's none there either. Oh, well, now they're out in the universe. They're everywhere. Or he, it, she, whatever. Yeah. Well, now we're starting to plow out into the universe, and we're still not finding any.
And I've seen thousands of pictures of the universe. I love to study the nebulae, right? The gases that make up nebulae, and just they're fascinating to me. I think they're one of the greatest things that nature has ever produced. Is the ability of a star to by force of gravity, to keep getting pulled in more and more and more, and to start producing iron to the point where it just goes supernova and just explodes, produces this huge, dust and gas that's, got all kinds of colors and everything, shoots it all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And, it's got all these amazing colors in it, and all these different vibrant colors. You got your different gases on there, the periodic table basically up in the sky. Not to mention the one
right behind us.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And, the Fingers of Creation, which is one of my favorite pictures of all time, they're 5 light-year tall columns of gas.
Yep.
And so, for nature to be able to produce this is an incredible feat. And I've seen thousands of these pictures. I've never seen an actual finger reach in and say, "I'm here."
Yep. Nope.
Not one.
Neither have I.
And I don't think I will.
No, I doubt it.
The weird thing, Neil, is if I'm watching a game, I love football. Football meaning soccer, not football. But
European football, not American.
Not American, right? If during the next World Cup, at the final, Germany wins again, right? Germany wins the game, and after they give out the trophy and all the players kiss and all that stuff, there's this figure that comes down in center field and just lands there and says, "I'm Jesus." I'm going to say, "Whoa, look, there he is. I was wrong." That's all it would take, really. So that's why I'm looking at all these pictures, right? And thinking, well, if there's anything out there, it surely should show himself, but nothing ever shows up. So it's kind of hard to believe something that's playing hide and seek with you. It's like, come on, man, be real. It's just not there. It's just not there. So after a while, you stop looking and say, hey, you know what? If he is up there, or she, or whoever, and they know what kind of proof I would need in order to believe in them, come and provide it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the holdup?
He's all knowing. He already knows what kind of proof you'd need. Yet he fails to give it to you.
Right. So either he doesn't want me to know that he exists, or he doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So, but it took, again, about 10 years for me to get to that point where I can say that without thinking, oh shit, am I going to get punished for that? I'm being real. That fear of punishment is what I think drives a lot of people. It certainly did me. It's like, hey, you can't do this because you're going to get punished. I was like, screw that.
By who?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm going to get punished because I look at a beautiful woman and think, wow, she's nice,
Because that seems legit. Eternal punishment for a finite crime. Like, what?
It's like, you're going to send me to hell because I admire a woman? I'm not doing anything to her. I'm not even talking to her or anything. I'm just like, hey, wow, she looks very pretty.
Yeah.
Why is that a crime? But the Catholic Church says that it is.
Yeah.
All right, or at least the particular church that I went to. And it has nothing to do with adultery because, first of all, I wasn't married at that time, and I don't know if she was or not. And adultery is if you're married, right? but the church says it's a crime, so you're going to get punished for it. So when you say something or think something, or you just kind of imagine something, say, hey, I'm going to get punished for this, that's a bad thing. But that's one of the reasons why, and I made this argument on the podcast several times, and some people didn't like it. The reason why religion and communism are so similar is because they both demand absolute obedience to an entity, either the dictator of the communist state or the dictator of the sky. The same thing. One is real, the other one is imaginary. They both demand 100% obedience to them, unconditional, right? You can't question them. You're not even supposed to think negative things about them.
Right.
And you have to take their word for everything. It's all about mind control.
Behavior control, thought control.
That's exactly right.
What's the I again? Shit, I can't remember where the I is now.
I can't either. But
emotional control is the E, but information control.
Yeah, that's information control. Yeah. So, but that's why I resent the whole thing. Is like, it's not about wanting to believe and having a personal relationship. If you want to have a personal relationship with a ghost and it makes you feel better, go for it. It's a free country. At least we like to tell ourselves that it is. If you want to believe something and you want to build your life around it, that's great. But don't tell me what the fuck to do.
Right.
That's not your decision. That's my decision. I have the freedom to do what I want to do, and what I want to do is not to follow your crap. Right? But that's not something that you have the option to do in either communism or religion. You have to follow the leader, because if you don't, you're going to get punished. Right? So that's one of the reasons why I liken Dracula in the book to communism. That's why Dracula is the personification of communism, is because he's an ultimate ruler, right? That can punish you beyond death. Not just in this life, but beyond death, right? Because if he turns you into a vampire, right, you're screwed. You're condemned to live the rest of eternity walking around as a walking dead, basically, and you have to pay homage to him.
Well, unless he's killed, then.
Unless he's killed, exactly. Then you're free, right? But what does religion tell you that you have to do? You have to follow all the commandments of a person while you're alive. And then in death, you have to follow the commandments or you will go to hell, right? If you don't follow the commandments while you're alive, he will send you to hell, where you're going to roast for eternity.
Mm-hmm. I'm already wearing mixed linen, so I'm screwed.
Oh, yeah, there's no hope for you, man. At this point, you're done.
Plus, I eat bacon, so
Oh yeah, you're screwed. Yeah, totally. Don't even worry about it. Yeah, I'll see you in hell. Crab. Yeah, we'll have the same table in hell, man. Don't worry. You can bring the music. You have good taste in music, so.
Thanks.
But it's, to me, that whole concept of mind control, I think, is what really started to get me to think about how absurd it is and how intellectually this is a provocation. It's an obscene provocation to tell somebody that you're going to get punished because of what you're thinking, because that's what the communists wanted to do. You're going to get punished for thinking that the state is not the ultimate be all and all. In religion, you're going to get punished because you think, or you dare to think that, hey, I may have a doubt. And so as long as you go along and you're advocating on behalf of the church, you're good. It's amazing how as soon as I started, becoming a non-believer, people that used to talk to me before, they're like, nope, we can't talk to you. You're a bad person. Okay, piss off.
You actually just reminded me of something that a buddy of mine wanted to try to do when we were kids. And I haven't thought about this in years. You just mentioned a couple of things there. He had this idea that he could make a what do you call it? Not the plate that they send around for donations at church.
Oh, the collection plate. Yeah.
Yeah, the collection plate. He thought he could make one, and he could go around the neighborhood and tell everyone he was collecting for the church. And then we'd have all this money to spend, and we could go get like Star Wars figures or whatever the fuck else it was. Candy mostly, but because we were kids when he thought this up. And I said,
Right.
That's fucking brilliant. Do it. And he never did, but it was just like, I thought it was like
the ultimate.
Yeah.
You would have gotten into a lot of trouble.
You're going to hell, dude. You're going to hell, David. You're going to hell.
You would have gotten into a lot of trouble, and I tell you why. They don't like competition.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't compete with the offering plate. That's reserved for the church only. So, it's like the mafia, man. They don't like it when you mess with their money.
That's fair. All right, that's fair.
But yeah, I mean it's not a particularly exciting deconversion story. It's not a particularly unique deconversion story. I think part of the reason why I have
yet to have had anyone come in here and talk about their deconversion story while in the same breath mentioning fucking vampires and Dracula. Right? You already lured people in the chat. They're like, vampires? I'm in. Right? So this is going a whole new route. So it's a first.
You know what? I mean, if you're going to talk about mythical beings, you have to mention vampires. They're the original. So at least in our collective consciousness, they're one of the oldest mythical beings, aside from Jesus. But yeah, you got to mention vampires and Dracula, who's the head of them all. He'll never die.
Right.
Dracula will never die. And I'm not talking about the actual Dracula, but the concept of Dracula will never die.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be that one group that's going to pick up the mantle and it's going to run with it. Whether it's the Catholic Church, whether that's the Presbyterian Church, whether that's some firebrand cleric from Pakistan or whoever, or wherever, or a politician. They're always going to pick up that mantle because it's so easy to influence people who are looking to be influenced, who are looking for something to hang on to because they're just flat fuck out of hope.
Okay, yeah.
They have none left, and they need something to keep going with life. Otherwise, they're going to kill themselves, right? Not physically, but maybe emotionally. They're going to shut down to the point where they may as well not exist, and they need that hope that these charlatans give them.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a Dracula that's going to exploit that because it works. So
oligarchs. Yep.
Yeah, and it's never going to go away. We could have 100% scientific literacy. You could have conversation with people.
Religion's here to stay. It may mutate over years, but it's here to stay.
Absolutely, it's not going away. People are like, well, what if the atheists take over? It's never going to happen.
No, but we can hope that it eventually becomes fringe, and not so much in the populace. But it's going to stick around. I mean, are you familiar with the show Futurama?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
all the religions decided by 1,000 years later they were just going to amalgamate into one big religion.
Yeah,
which I thought was fucking hilarious.
It's a possibility. I mean, realistically, it's a possibility, and
they're already saying things like, "Oh, all the gods are the same god. They just have different names depending on where you are in the world." Really?
Exactly.
So Bombas the same as Yahweh? Because Bombas vomited everything into existence. Like what? That's not what it says in the Bible.
I would love to see a calendar on top of Buddha's head. I think it would be hilarious. The flying spaghetti monster marries Hinduism. It's brilliant. I mean, just get a calendar big enough to put on Buddha's head, and you got a nice, match made in heaven, right, so to speak. But yeah, can you imagine that conference where they decide which holy book they're going to go with?
Right.
Out of the thousands that are on the planet.
They'll just have another Council of Nicaea and pick bits and pieces out of everyone and make a new book.
whichever one makes the most sense, right? Whichever one they think is going to be the most sellable to
Right.
the widest group of people.
Except this time it won't be the council. I see it'll be like the Council of New Jersey or something, where they get to just
Oh
get together.
God, don't say that, Neil. Oh
I
my
don't know.
God.
It's just I pulled it out of my ass.
Yeah,
It was
don't
uncomfortable
say it.
anyway, so it had to go.
Have you seen the outgoing administration here and
Yeah. Well,
the level of penetration that the religious right had into this administration is,
yes.
I mean, you know, I'm reluctant to, well, not reluctant because at that point I was in that mind frame, but I voted for George W. Bush twice. I mean,
Council of men, fuck it. Or Nantucket.
yeah. I voted for Bush twice. I don't regret it. I think he made some disastrous decisions that got us into situations that we're still trying to get out of. But I think overall he meant well. I think he is, despite his religious, fervor and his thinking that he was ordained by God to run this country, he was kind of a decent person, by and large.
He was funny, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, he was
a bit of a goofball, but he was a lot of fun to poke fun at too.
Trump, and he took it in good strides. He took it in strides. He didn't care.
He did.
But this person, I mean, this is just next level.
You already propped him up too high, in my opinion. You called him a person.
The penetration into the U.S. government by the religious right that took place over the past 4 years is what created a lot of the issues that we're trying to overcome right now. Because it's no longer about separating the ideas of state and church and politicians maintaining their personal religious beliefs to placate their electorate, whether they believe it or not. Because I think a lot of politicians are actually atheists. They just don't want to come out and say it because they won't get reelected. But it's not about just showing that they're going to church on Sunday instead of on the morning talk shows. Now it's about, holy shit, we're taking over, And you put people like Paula White into the White House, who's just bad crap crazy beyond belief. And, they start talking in tongues in the Oval Office. It's like, holy shitballs. And
she's a fucking lunatic.
It's unbelievable to me that the country that has produced the first atomic weapon in the history of humanity, that built a superconducting super collider in the Midwest before it got defunded, and then went to Switzerland, right? The country that came up with the polio vaccine and amazing technological advances is still on the brink of the fucking dark ages when it comes to this shit. It's unbelievable to me. And it's like, come on, man. It's like, we got all this stuff that we know works, and you're applying to voodoo to get us through this COVID nonsense? Come on.
Right.
It's
holy cow, phone's going nuts.
It's the level of penetration into the human mind that religion can be. That's the only reason why this is happening, is because of the amount of the amount of power it has over people. And like you said, it's never going away. At least not in our lifetime. So
probably not. You're probably right. And just a little bit of a heads up. You keep using the word penetration. I'm telling you, Lassie, keep that up. You're going to get the audience worked up. They're going to get all hot and bothered. They're all sitting there, even in the winter, going, "Oh Jesus, where's that word again?"
Neil, there is an antidote for that. Put my face on the screen. Everybody will come right down and like.
Yes, I hear you, man. I've often been told I got a face for radio too. So.
Look at the size of that schnoz. That's all you need, man. Just put it up there. All the women are gonna go, well, that was fun. Thanks, man, for nothing. So yeah, antidote right there.
Yeah. Well, my friend, we have come up to the hour. So before we close this out,
Mhm.
I kind of want to hear, like, you did your podcast for a while. I kind of want to
Mhm.
know what caused you to sort of tell people a little bit about what it was about, and then sort of let us
Mhm.
know, like, why you decided to stop. I guess you're on a
Mhm.
hiatus. You may get going again.
Um, well, that's a good question that I was not prepared to answer, but but
I do my
the
best.
part of the reason why we stopped is we basically just got to the point where Justin and I are so similar in our thinking
Hmm.
about what constitutes a moral being and what constitutes stupidity and what constitutes, you know, just intellectual dishonesty on any
Okay.
scale imaginable, that we got to the point where we ran out of topics to talk about because we were just looking at each other going, well, we agree on this. Well, we agree on this. Well, we agree on this. All right, well, we're done, you know. And
Yeah.
so we did um, 3 years worth of shows. And after 3 years, we're just like, or 3 seasons, I'm sorry. And after 3 seasons, we're just like, we ran out of topics. We can't think of anything else to talk about when it comes to religion, because
Right.
that's what the podcast started out as, is let's talk about religion and all the things that we see as contradicting each other in within the Bible and within different religious sects. And, if this God, like Dinesh D'Souza, um,
Oh boy.
well, who I'm not going to talk about at length because I don't think he deserves to be talked about. He claims that every religion is just a different facets of a mountain, but when you get to the top, the same God is sitting there, right? And he made that argument at a conference when he was debating Michael Shermer. And I don't remember what Shermer's response was, but it was something along the lines of, well, then, the mountain is crooked, or I don't remember what Shermer said. But Dinesh D'Souza has this stupid argument that every religion is just a different facet of a mountain. When you get to the top, there's one God. So what we try to do is pick apart the different religions that contradicted each other to the point where if you took a map and try to scale that mountain, there's no way you would get to the top if you listen to different religions, because the road's going to go like this and it's all over the place, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Because one religion says this and the other religion says that. And, by the time you get, 45, 50 days into it or 10 years into it, um, then you're so confused that you're still at the base of the mountain. You're not making any headway. So there's no way you can get up to the top. And so we try to pick apart the different facets of that argument over a course of about 3 seasons. And we just kind of got to the point where we got burned out and said, we're tired of arguing with idiots. We're tired of arguing with people who think that vaccinations are the works of the devil. Um,
Oh,
you
don't
know,
even get me started. I'm having issues with my sister right now.
I'm
She
sorry to
is
hear
a
that, man.
she's a health slash home care worker, but
Yeah.
she doesn't trust vaccines. I'm like, you realize that if you're going to continue in your field as a home
Hmm.
care health slash healthcare worker, you
Yeah.
have to get vaccinated. If you don't,
Oh,
they won't let
absolutely.
you work.
Right.
You won't work. Oh
Right.
no, they won't. No, they won't. It's like, what are you doing? And what do you
Yeah.
not trust? Like, she's got her mind's goes a little different ways when it comes to scientific things. That's for sure.
A couple of days ago, and I know you're kind of pressed for time, so I'll make it real quick. A couple of days ago, I put a tweet on, and my Twitter following is non-existent. So I'm not putting anything on Twitter to talk to anybody specific. It's mainly just to talk to myself. And I put a note on there that my partner got vaccinated for COVID, and I want to thank the people at Pfizer, um,
You were saying
because
that.
it's
I'd
it's
retweeted
one of
that
the.
one actually.
Oh, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because it is one of the miracles of science that we had discovered this opportunity for the human body to have a reaction to a minuscule amount of the intrusion that a normal virus would cause,
Right.
while still introducing your immune system to the virus, whether that's a
It's
deactivated
inactive.
protein,
It's inactive. Yeah.
right, inactive, or if you have a synthetic virus that's introduced, whatever the case might be, so that
Mhm.
your immune system can recognize it and fight and develop the antibodies to fight off the real thing if it comes
Exactly.
along.
That's how it
And
works.
so, I put
It's
this tweet out
chemistry.
there. Yeah, it is basic chemistry. That's all it is. That's
Yeah.
basic chemistry. And so I put this tweet out there saying thank you to the people of Pfizer because they really came up with a vaccine that's keeping one of the most incredible people on the face of this planet alive, and that's my partner.
There you go.
So,
well, Las, I think that was a good thing to bring this to an end with, is just recognizing that medical science does what it can to help people. Right?
absolutely.
We understand, folks have to understand that medical science and big pharma are not the same thing.
Right.
Big pharma, well, of course, is in it for the profits, but they need to be able to fund all the R&D so that medical science can actually make something that they can profit from. Although they don't do that here in Canada. We don't really charge for this shit here. But yeah. But
I'm in the US, man, so
I know. I'm sorry. Before we go,
I love my country. I just don't like certain parts of it.
Sure. Well, certain aspects of its political decisions.
Right.
But just before we go, I'm going to bring my producer, Mr. Mikey Famine, into the fray.
Oh, hi.
Finger up.
Hello.
Didn't even see you guys there. What'd I miss?
Nothing. I was talking for most of the time, so you missed nothing. Literally.
I like that.
Oh no, you missed a lot, man. No, he was in the background the whole time, so
good to meet you, man. I appreciate it.
The green room, so to speak.
Matches.
Yes, PJ, you are late, but there will be an after party, so you're welcome to go hang out in the chat for that one. And welcome, by the way.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, Las, I want to say thank you very much for joining me today. It was a pleasure. Now you've done my show as I did your show back in the day there, and makes us even, I guess. But just so you know, we're all. Go ahead.
I think you're still a couple of light years ahead of me because of the work that you do, because of everything that you do. And I mean, I just got to come back and say, my sister has stage 3B cancer, and she relies on blood donors. She relies on blood donors to get her through the day. And so what you're doing is you're literally saving lives.
Yeah. Good boy.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible. I can't. I think that's a point that you cannot overemphasize, is that you're literally saving lives every time you donate blood. And the fact that you encourage other people to do it, you're A-okay, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And my very good friend, Simply Secular, who's in the comment section, or is in the chat there, donated with Randolph and myself last night. I took a picture of the three of us. And he's now a member of my group and will be joining us every time we go. So we're going to make it like a little
outstanding
every 2-month Wednesday night picnic blood donation thingy, something along those lines.
That's incredible. That really
All
is
your fans are in the audience.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah. Oh boy.
Sorry, Las.
All right, guys. Well, I know you're coming up against the over the hour. I'm sorry. So
okay.
I just want to thank you for having me on the show, man. I really appreciate it. It was great meeting you the first time. It was awesome seeing you again. And if you're in Florida, we're gonna go grab a beer.
Or 2 or 7.
We got Uber. No worries. We got Uber.
I like my beer.
As do I.
All right.
It's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah, it was great having you on, dude. It was really good. I really wanted to hear your story, and I wanted to definitely talk about the podcast that you used to do and stuff like that. Also, guys, if you look below, the links to follow Las Lugosi on Twitter are down below. And also, he's written a few books, and there's a link to one of them, which will actually help you find the other ones as well when you go there. It's about vampires and stuff. So with the last name Lugosi, how can you not write about vampires, right?
I'm legally obligated to by the universe. I think
Vampires Union.
That's right. The Transylvanian Vampires Union.
That's right. That's right. And
All
man, when those guys come after you, they really come after you with, blaring teeth.
Fangs
So,
of blaring. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't fuck around with them.
They're out for blood, though.
Oh, yeah. No point. You're going to start off at -2 points for that one.
God damn it.
No, I'll give you 2 points for that one. It's actually all right. We're going to wrap this up, guys. I want to thank everyone in the chat for hanging out with us. Don't forget that I am myself and a few other folks that you've seen on the show are now co-hosts of the new relaunch, I should say, of the nonprofits over at the ACA channel. So definitely head over to the nonprofits channel and give them a sub, and you'll see me. I've already done a few episodes, and there's more to come. Also, don't forget that Randolph and I are starting up our own call-in show very soon after the new year. At some point, we're still building it. Building's kind of slowed down because the weather is fucking rain all the time around here. Vancouver's nickname, by the way, is Raincouver, just so you know that. Anyway, so we're going to be doing that, a call-in show all about atheism, theism, whatever you want to talk about. We'll talk to you. And once a month, we'll probably have a special guest with us. So you never know when I might come knocking at your door to come special guests on the show. All right, so keep your ears perked. And definitely go over and sub to the channel so you know when we launch. And also, thanks to all my wonderful patrons. You guys are what keeps the show going. If you are interested in becoming a patron because you kind of get a giggle or a chuckle here and there from watching the show, or maybe you shed a tear from something that happened in one of the stories, like I have multiple times, then look at the link below, or there's a link below. You can go and become a patron for the show, and I would very much appreciate it. As little as $1 a month, guys. $1 a month. I didn't do the super high stuff. I did 1, 5, and 1, 2, 5, and 10, I think, or something. But anyways, because I don't want to gouge people. That's not what it's about. It's just a little bit extra to help things get better. Also, on Tuesday, December 22nd, Tuesday, December 22nd, my show will not be on because I'm going to be on the Empathetic Atheist show on that Tuesday. All right, guys. Now, until next time. Oh, yes, that's the new schedule down there. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, no longer Mondays, Wednesdays, because I needed the Wednesdays in order to do the nonprofit show. All right, until next time, guys, like I always say at the end of these interviews, like the late, great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.